Red Rain is a Vietnamese war film adapted from a novel with propagandistic overtones by writer Chu Lai. The work was produced with the support of the Communist Party of Vietnam and reflects the perspective of the victorious side in the war. The film recreates the 81-day battle at the ancient citadel of Quang Tri in 1972, one of the bloodiest clashes of the Vietnam War. The story revolves around young students who volunteered to fight in defense of the ancient citadel against overwhelming firepower, highlighting themes such as sacrifice, patriotism, and resilient determination. With an emotionally charged narrative and numerous intense battle scenes, the film seeks to honor the heroic spirit of wartime and to evoke reflection on a controversial historical memory. However, with its overtly propagandistic tone and underlying political motives, many segments of Red Rain were fabricated or heavily distorted compared to reality. To see the absurdity, imagine if Nazi Germany had won World War II and produced a film to justify the genocide of the Jews, presenting it as a heroic epic, something utterly unimaginable, isn't it? Fortunately, there are still many living witnesses from both the North and the South, along with historical records preserved by independent press agencies. To clearly distinguish between fiction and fact, we present the perspectives of three direct witnesses. Chu Lai, the author of Red Rain, once served as a commando in the outskirts of Saigon before 1975. He did not take part in the 1972 Battle of Quang Tri, which has led to many doubts about the authenticity of his depiction of the event. Veteran Trinh Hoa Binh, who directly fought at Quang Tri, publicly criticized Red Rain for its historical inaccuracies. He argued that the film distorted many important aspects of the battle, blending fact with exaggerated or fictional elements, which misled audiences about the true nature of the event. Former Major Lu Quang Lien of the Republic of Vietnam Marine Corps commanded a company that took part in the campaign to retake the Quang Tri citadel. His account stands in complete contrast to the dramatized script presented in the film. Time and place. The distortion of the Quang Tri citadel. In the film Red Rain, the battle is portrayed as if it took place inside the Quang Tri citadel from the very beginning. Yet according to eyewitnesses, this depiction is completely inconsistent with historical reality. Veteran Trinh Hoa Binh publicly corrected this misrepresentation.
That is fundamentally wrong from a historical standpoint, from the course of the battle to the way the tunnel system is described. I affirm that for most of the 81 days of fighting, the clashes took place in the villages and peripheral areas, not inside the ancient citadel. The Quang Tri citadel is a square structure, bordered to the west by the Thach Han River, with the north, east, and south sides being the main areas of combat. The Quang Tri citadel covers about a quarter of a square kilometer, with each side measuring over 500 meters. Meanwhile, the forces engaged amounted to 8 battalions, which could not possibly be crammed into such a confined space. If that had truly been the case, a single B-52 strike would have been enough to wipe everything out. The mission at the time was to prevent the enemy from entering the citadel, meaning the fighting took place around it, not inside. The battle inside the citadel only began on the 81st day.
Testimony of former Major Lu Quang Lien.
On July 27, 1972, the Republic of Vietnam Marine Division was ordered to replace the Airborne Division and take the lead in the counteroffensive campaign to retake Quang Tri town and the ancient citadel. All 9 Marine battalions were successively deployed to the front lines, directly engaging in combat. From July 27 to September 8, the Marine units endured fierce battles, fighting street by street to recapture strategic positions such as the hospital, the market, and the school. The North Vietnamese forces entrenched themselves in solid fortifications and occupied the high ground, making every advance costly. The 3rd and 6th battalions, assigned the mission of capturing the citadel, encountered intense resistance and suffered heavy losses as they broke through enemy strongholds and pressed up against the citadel walls. Throughout this period, our forces had not yet entered the citadel itself, which was only subjected to artillery and air strikes. The objective at that time was to isolate and weaken the enemy's defensive system before launching the general offensive. By September 9, Brigade 258 had advanced to the southern edge of the citadel, marking the final phase of the campaign. During the night of September 13 and the early morning of September 14, the 3rd Battalion of Brigade 147 and the 6th Battalion of Brigade 258 coordinated an assault, capturing the northeastern and southeastern corners of the citadel through extraordinary determination and sacrifice. On the morning of September 14th, the Marine forces simultaneously charged into the citadel, eliminating the remaining North Vietnamese units. Surrounded, starving, and demoralized, the enemy was forced to surrender. On September 15th, the yellow flag with 3 red stripes was raised atop the citadel wall, symbolizing the victory in recapturing Quang Tri. At the same time, just outside the citadel, the 2nd Battalion destroyed the enemy's Quang Tri Front Command, which had been hidden in a wine cellar next to the provincial governor's palace. In summary, the Marine Corps completed its mission on September 15, 1972, and held a victory flag-raising ceremony for the entire division at 12:45 p.m. on September 16th. The fighting inside the citadel lasted only from the night of September 13th to the morning of September 14th, in complete contrast to the film's depiction of a prolonged last-stand defense within the citadel.
A rare admission from within the People's Army. In September 2025, journalist Lu Trong Van published a widely noted article quoting Colonel Hong Tien, political commissar of the 95th Regiment, a North Vietnamese unit that fought at the Quang Tri Front in 1972. Colonel Tien recounted,
"I sent 3 letters to the division, clearly reporting the actual situation of both our forces and the enemy. In the 3rd letter, I wrote, 'We must value the lives of our soldiers. Marching means death. Crossing the river means death. Concentrating without fortifications means death. Straying into enemy territory means death.'"
His frank appeal, marked by humanity and caution, was not accepted but instead harshly condemned.
And so, I was branded with the first accusation: cowardice, rightist thinking, unwillingness to attack, fear of death.
This rare confession from a senior officer reveals the extreme ideological pressures faced by North Vietnamese commanders, where speaking out to protect soldiers' lives could be regarded as a sign of ideological decline. It also exposes the human cost behind the heroic narratives so often found in media controlled by the Communist Party of Vietnam. Treatment of North Vietnamese prisoners by the Republic of Vietnam Armed Forces. One of the most blatant fabrications in the film Red Rain is the scene in which the Republic of Vietnam Marines are shown burning prisoners alive, a grotesque distortion created to serve a false propaganda purpose. Veteran Trinh Hoa Binh directly refuted this scene.
The scene of Republic of Vietnam soldiers burning prisoners is not true. They did not do that. Such a depiction easily leads viewers to think that the Southern Army was cruel and barbaric. But in reality, they too were Vietnamese, and they lived with humanity.
Former Major Lu Quang Lien recounted,
"On the morning of September 15, 1972, my unit, the 2nd Battalion of the Marine Corps, succeeded in capturing the North Vietnamese Quang Tri Front Command, which had been hidden in a wine cellar next to the Quang Tri provincial governor's palace. We captured nearly 20 North Vietnamese soldiers alive and seized a large quantity of weapons, communications equipment, and provisions. Although the battle was very fierce, we still treated the captives humanely. We shared bandages, medicine, and food to dress their wounds and ease their hunger. Most of them were just in their early 20s, thin, panic-stricken, and full of anxiety. Clearly, they had been indoctrinated with distorted propaganda, which claimed that the Southern Army was cruel and inhumane. As Southerners, we were nurtured in a spirit of humanity, rooted in ancestral traditions and the progressive democratic ideals of the free world. We believed in the sanctity of human life, including the lives of our enemies. As Marine officers, we strictly adhered to codes of conduct. Mistreating prisoners was unacceptable, as it violated both military law and the laws of the Republic of Vietnam."
Platoon leader Vu Duy Hien of Company 3, Battalion 3, 147th Marine Brigade later recounted that his soldiers encountered several North Vietnamese troops so hungry that they begged for food, and they were immediately fed without hesitation. He affirmed,
"On the battlefield, amid the chaos of combat, killing was sometimes unavoidable, hesitation meant death. But once the enemy had laid down their arms, they became prisoners, no longer targets. Humane treatment was a duty, not an exception." Moreover, the Republic of Vietnam had long institutionalized this principle through the Chiu Hoi program, initiated in 1963 and lasting until 1975. This amnesty and defection initiative reintegrated more than 200,000 former communist soldiers into civilian life. Many of the prisoners captured by my unit, from the Mai Chan line to the provincial governor's palace, belonged to elite formations such as the 66th Regiment of the 304th Division, the 101st Regiment of the 325th Division, the 48th Regiment of the 320B Division, and the True High Regiment. Their survival and ability to bear witness stand as living proof of the humane treatment they received from the Republic of Vietnam Marine Corps.
This testimony is fully consistent with the official policy of the Republic of Vietnam Armed Forces, which adhered to the Geneva Conventions on the treatment of prisoners of war and strictly prohibited all acts of mistreatment. Violations would be prosecuted under both the law and public opinion. Distorting historical truth through film not only misleads perceptions but also insults the shared humanity of soldiers on both sides. Perhaps it is time for us to present the truth clearly and systematically, in order to understand why this deceitful propaganda novel is attempting to rewrite history under the guise of patriotism. Reflections on War and Historical Truth. The Battle of Quang Tri was an offensive launched by the North against the South, justified under the slogan of national reunification. However, this action violated the Geneva Agreement, which had established the 17th parallel as a temporary boundary. The attack was not an effort to achieve peaceful reunification, but rather a breach of an international accord and an act of aggression against the Republic of Vietnam. If the armed forces of the Republic of Vietnam were truly cruel, then why did civilians continually flee toward the defensive lines of the Southern Army during battles? From one engagement to the next, people sought the protection of the Republic of Vietnam Armed Forces, clearly escaping from something far more terrifying. Their actions speak louder than any propaganda. Patriotism and endurance cannot erase the mass exodus. The sacrifices of North Vietnamese soldiers are often portrayed as heroic, but this cannot explain why millions of Vietnamese, civilians, former Republic of Vietnam soldiers, and even defected communist cadres, chose to leave the country after 1975. If post-war Vietnam had truly been a peaceful and just nation, then why did millions of Vietnamese risk everything to escape in search of freedom? Red Rain is a propaganda product of the victorious side. Even after winning the war, the Communist Party of Vietnam continued to carry out a cultural and ideological campaign aimed at erasing the legacy of the Republic of Vietnam. The novel and its film adaptation demonstrate that the war has not ended, it has merely shifted to the battlefield of spirit and public perception, not toward historical reconciliation. The Republic of Vietnam still lives in the hearts of the people. The yellow flag with 3 red stripes remains a sacred symbol for millions in the overseas community. Although it is banned in Vietnam, it continues to exist in the hearts, homes, and communities of Vietnamese around the world, a testament that history cannot be erased by cinema. Conclusion: a warning about Red Rain. Those who witnessed the Battle of Quang Tri in 1972 all know that Red Rain, adapted from a propaganda novel, contains much fabrication and distortion. This raises a serious question. What is the true purpose of a film so heavily sponsored by the Communist Party of Vietnam? Who is it aimed at? Red Rain appears deliberately designed for the generation born after the war, those who grew up under the communist regime and were often exposed only to a single propaganda system controlled by the party. It also targets audiences easily swayed by emotion, lacking critical thinking, and prone to accepting tragic stories as if they were historical truth. When emotion overwhelms reason, viewers are easily led astray by embellished images instead of seeking the truth. This strategy is not education, but a technique of ideological orientation. By appealing to emotion instead of evidence, Red Rain becomes an effective tool for rewriting history in the minds of the next generation. Rather than encouraging independent thought or genuine historical study, it stifles reflection and obstructs the process of reconciliation. Instead of opening a space for dialogue, the film risks shaping collective memory in a single direction, a direction that stifles the spirit of openness and reinforces ideological conformity. It is time to return the truth to history, not through dramatized film scenes, but through evidence, witnesses, and conscience.